Welcome to the Super Spectrum, and glad to have you all back. Sorry for the wait. And I'm joined by Trevor Person, and of course, I'm Bear Truth. And today we'll be reviewing Stanley Kubrick's first film, Fear and Desire. We're going to be reviewing every Stanley Kubrick movie, excluding his Spartacus film, which he did not edit. And so I decided to disclude it because if you do, and keeping in mind that that film was a director for hire film, he didn't actually want to make that film. He was just trying to get good with the studios so that he could develop his own, masterpieces, which he did go on to do. But yeah, if you don't count Spartacus, Stanley Kubrick has 12 films. And so once I found that out, I overlaid them chronologically with the zodiac signs, and they really seem to match up with each sign and correspond to them really accurately. Um, I came to that idea one day when I was watching the Divulgence podcast, episode 66 in particular, called Stanley Kubrick and Crypto K, a deep dive with Alex Fulton. And they were discussing how he has 13 films and one of them was not edited by him. And then so I said, okay, so well, there's 12 really. And then I just lined them up. And so that's why Super Spectrum is going to be reviewing them chronologically throughout this year's zodiacal wheel, you know, the zodiacal year. This is a little late for Aries. You know, some astrologers say that Aries ends on the 18th. Some say that it ends on the 19th, but we're going to we're going to take it as it ends on the 19th today, just so that we're technically still in Aries season. Aries starts off the year. It springs forward the year. You know, it's the rebirth. Everything comes to life again after the death of the winter in Pisces. And of course, starting in Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, those are the winter zodiac seasons. And then everything comes back to life in Aries and so forth in the rest of spring. But for a long time, I didn't really believe in astrology. And that's all you can really do is believe, nothing's going to prove it at the end of the day. But yeah, I used to have strong doubts. And eventually, I was a huge skeptic on it. I only knew about horoscopes. But eventually, yeah, all those doubts pretty much faded. And the way I see it now is that life is symbolic. And so if you're born while everything is coming to life during the springtime in Aries, right? Um, yeah, and the constellation might not be completely lined up anymore, but you were born at that springtime, right? And you're going to have more energy than everyone else. You might be a strong leader, natural born leader, right? Beginning the year. Um, you might be more masculine because of that. Little bit hard-headed and want to be the boss of situations, want to be the king. Uh, and yeah, tons of energy, like the season itself, everything starts blooming, things come back to life. And yeah, we'll touch on that more later, but let's let's not keep Trevor waiting. Trevor, do um you want to just say hi real quick and then we'll get into the review?
Sure, yeah. It's been a little hiatus. Just been re, you know, reestablishing everything. Or I guess this is the reestablishment of the super spectrum. But yeah, I had a interesting time watching this movie, and I'm curious. I'm not as familiar. I'm familiar with the zodiac and astrology, but I'm not as knowledgeable about each of the signs like you are. So I just watched the movie as just a regular old viewer, and I'm curious what you have to say. But it was a really interesting movie, and I know Aries has something to do with war, right? And this movie was about war, but not really. Like, it's not like a war movie. So I'm curious what this and excited to see what this next episode, but also next phase of the super spectrum and just everything in general, starting with this movie. It's like a perfect movie to transition into the. It's we're almost we're pretty deep into the new year, but into the new year of the super spectrum and whatnot. But yeah, the new era. This is the new era. Oh wait, one more thing. Not to mention, we don't want to or need to get into this in this show, but not to mention everything going on in the world. It's a weird time to review this movie, with just like the wars and stuff.
Right. Yeah. It's cool that few things, Trevor. Yeah. First of all, that you picked up on the war, that that masculine energy, right? The Aries, martial, ruled by Mars. Um, Energy is, yeah, totally in this film, and then he would kind of touch on it in other films as well. Keep touching on it in a few films. We'll have to try to keep track of which ones he did touch on. But yeah, it's great. It's We're springing forward our, like you said, our rebirth, which is kind of what part of Aries' symbolism is, and you know yeah, great time to do it. That sometimes I've heard, if you want to start a new business, start it in Aries, because that's when you're going to have the most energy behind you. Um, Touching back really quickly though on one more thing. Like I said, the constellations might not last the entire season, right? Like the sun, the sun's the sun's the I always bring it up when I need to, but the sun's whatever path in the sky, can't remember what it's called. Wish I could, so you guys could try to see that. I've put a lot of thought into this stuff, but the sun's path in the sky during the daytime will be crossing through a certain constellation. It goes around this band of constellations known as the zodiac, and anyways, the ram is there. They chose the ram, I think, just because obviously most of the constellations look nothing like their animal, or their angel in Aquarius, or Libra, the scales. Most of them look nothing like what they're supposed to represent, but they just chose that symbol to draw up in the constellation, because that's what that time of year represented to them. So yeah, we're gonna get into all of that. I love astrology. I really would love, maybe if my friend Old World Florida, Dr. Narco Longo, came on. I'm sure he would support us and do that. He's already offered to in the past. So is his brother. So yeah, I would love that. And he knows, and I'm sure both of them, but specifically, Dr. Narco Longo, Old World Florida, is an astrologer. And one more shout out, Andreas Exertus. I was just on his show, and he actually has a show that he co hosts with Noah from. He's an astrologer, and he has his own YouTube channel. And Noah gave me um, a reading on their podcast called AstroTurf, and yeah, it was great. You guys could look that up. I posted it. in the channel posts. So, oh, and some of the stuff that that guy Noah said was true. So, anyways, let's go on. Um, yeah, this movie's super, super awesome. I wanted to start off by telling you guys why astrology is worth considering. And so I think I covered that mostly. And yeah, so let's keep going on. All right, I'm going to go into my notes. There's this one scene, Trevor. Do you remember the character Sydney, the youngest character, the one who ends up going mad? He says, "Why do you talk like that? You keep saying things as if you're talking from a window." He says that to the lieutenant because the lieutenant seems uh, kind of detached and not caring too much about the outcome. And that's a super aware point of view where you don't, you go with the flow, which he's the one who's always trying to guide them to the river. Um, and you go with the changes and you do not try to resist them. And yeah, he's of course the pilot, and that's the higher intellectual self. The lieutenant is the pilot. I was looking at the credits, and actually, he plays the general as well. Okay, you saw that too, Trevor. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, I noticed the general is the lieutenant, and then the general's I don't know what his position would be, but the guy that was drinking with the general is the other guy. The
Fletcher is the captain,
Yeah,
the drinker.
yeah, which we can get into later, but I mean that's kind of I think it's kind of self-explanatory, but like just with them being the enemy being played by themselves basically like um because that was another interesting thing was the intro. I actually reread this because the intro didn't really make that much sense to me at the beginning, the narration. Like it just was like, oh, I thought it was a metaphor. But then when I reread it after watching it, I was like, oh no, that's literally what this movie. It says something like, in this forest, there's a war, but no, not a war where I forget what it says exactly, but it basically says there's no enemies. This is not a war that has been fought or like will be fought, but it represents any war. And that was crazy that I didn't pick up on that or remember that while watching it because the whole time I was like, what war is this? Because it's clearly not a war, but it's funny that it says that in the beginning, like literally point blank. It's like, this is not a specific war. This represents all wars. I mean, I didn't think that the whole time. Eventually, I was like, oh, yeah, this is clearly just like a fictional war that represents war in general. But that was funny to me that, like, it literally says it, and then I was still like, but wait, where are they? But yeah, that scene you were talking about, that's one of the more interesting scenes for sure. Um, or interesting dialogues.
Hmm. Yeah, Trevor, that's where I started writing my notes. But in the beginning as well, talks about how it's all in the mind. This all takes place in the mind. And like you said, like you touched on, uh, yeah, I didn't really crack that code yet, but I knew there was something more to it. But yes, the enemy is themselves. Although I was already, or the enemy is being played by themselves. Although I had already knew that was a theme in the film, um, which I don't think I wrote down about it, but I talk about it in a little ways where I had the synchronicity right after watching it. I watched it last night and I watched it today as well. And then another thing I didn't write down, so let's just say it before, or let me just please say it before I forget. But this is totally like Twilight Zone inspired, at least to me, where it has that narration in the beginning. It's only like an hour long. Um, really quick review. Love the movie. 10 out of 10 for me. I saw recommended below it when I was watching the video free on YouTube that this movie, according to the person who made this video essay that I watched, and it was recommended to me, uh, this movie was not something that Stanley Kubrick really wanted people to see. According to this guy that I watched a video essay on, Stanley was destroying the recordings of the film, and anyways, yeah, I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah. Um, and then that guy pointed out how it was a little bit messy in the editing. Maybe Stanley was bothered by that. But anyways, going back to that first scene, yeah, he's Lieutenant's the aware, high-minded pilot. He's got the top-down point of view, God consciousness. The lieutenant sees the greater picture, so he's not bothered or afraid and is instead detached because he knows that there is more to life than what he can see, and thus he believes life is really more like a dream, and um, meaning that he needn't take it so seriously. Neither should he take his mortality so seriously, which he kind of explains, and this is kind of like the life is a laugh mentality. I feel like Stanley definitely had that, and yeah, he was already feeling that way, and that's why it's written into that character. All right. Wrote down it's kind of like Inside Out. These are the archetypical thought processes of man, each side of the collective mind bickering and feuding with each other. Just let me know. I'm looking at you, Trevor. Just let me know like if you want to talk. We just gotta had I just shut we had to mute him so that the mic doesn't echo. Um so and oh, my favorite YouTuber, like I said, Andreas Exertus, said something like this, that the movie covered everything that Kubrick's other movies would go on to cover separately. That's kind of like the Ares thing where, and the David Lynch thing where the ending is in the beginning. Whatever's going, notice you could watch Superman, this 2025 one. I noticed it recently. Everything that's going to happen in the movie is all in the first scene, and the ending, the outcome, is also foreshadowed in the first scene. And that's because we live kind of in a holographic universe where the entire universe is in a grain of sand type of concept. Um, all right. Oh, the end is in the beginning of the film, fittingly representing Ares, just as fittingly how Ares rules the head, and like the Hermetic principle goes, all is mind. Remember, they say this whole movie's in the mind, and all of this, every his films are very psychological, and psychology, the mind, everything comes from that. And when you break it down to these archetypes, you can really cover everything because that's the foundation of everything. And that fractal way, it kind of just is the perfect starting block to just really cover everything. Um, in the beginning, this movie says it takes place in the mind, and with the film depicting the fundamental archetypes of man's mind, his emotions, it can be a metaphor for everything. Kind of just said that. The way that these characters represent not only one man's mind his internal emotion, with his internal emotions contradicting one another. It can also represent multiple people with contradicting emotions, or each representing a different archetype. So we have basically, if you take this film's characters as arguing sides of your mind, the fearful one, the sad one, or the mad one, more fear on one side, and then the higher minded one, right? That lieutenant's affected by fear too, and um, he talks about it, but uh, we could say that all these characters represent our things going on in our mind, but then of course they could also represent those archetypes in each person with separate people arguing. So outside of the mind as well. Um, the way, nope, just read that. Oh, here's the synchronicity. And we're almost done with the notes, and then we'll just talk about the movie, Trevor. But I don't want to hear everything you want to say. But I actually was walking past a police investigation in my neighborhood while watching this movie, and on my phone, walking my dog. Um, and there were three officers whom I immediately saw as being the soldiers in the film, while I hypothesized they might even be possibly wanting to go about the investigation in different ways, kind of like how Mac wants to go go on the raft and kill the cap no not the general, and then um, the pilot just wants to go down the river or take the plane. Um, so I'm going down the street, see a police investigation. Then I see these police officers, and I'm like, oh wow, they kind of look like they're having a little internal struggle. All right, they're doing their investigation, similar to the soldiers in the movie. All right. Then there were three civilians, two of whom were on the side, and one was being arrested. And I overheard it was because he was violating a restraining order for coming on that property of the other two, right? And all these people I immediately thought of as parts of myself, even, just as they felt part of the movie, which was, of course, me as well, if you could understand what I mean. Later on, I saw myself and the person being arrested as threats to the collective's security, thus, like the enemy army, thus representing the movie's titular fear. All right, so I saw myself as kind of that enemy army, because when I started walking towards the cops, one of the cops was staring me down, did not stop looking at me. I don't actually, maybe I wasn't walking my dog. I can't remember, but I think I had my shirt off and my flashlight on my phone so I could see while watching the movie. It was interesting. I was like, this is so syncretic, and yeah, I was seen as like a potential threat, and that's kind of broken down by that Mac character, right? He sees that general as like a king who, and this is that wanting to control others. Check out the while we were talking about this, and I talk about oneness and how everything is a part of me, including the movies, and including you, including Trevor. Um, Talk about this in Honey Don't Review, the K-pop Demon Hunter, and then I touch on that order versus chaos theory in the Jurassic Park review, or Jurassic World Rebirth, or whatever it was called. Um, Anyways, going on. This synchronicity with the police officers helps illustrate the film's ability to cover such wide ground because of its use of basic human thought processes. Um, and then we'll go into Aries in a second, but the pilot keeps wanting to go down the river, to go with the flow, not resist change or fear or have fearing of the unknown. The water also represents the subconscious, something he is willing to delve into, but something the other men resist going into, right? So he can go into himself, look at his fears, desires, emotions, not and and from a non-confrontational, non-judgmental, point of view, and from a realistic and a honest point of view, where he doesn't lie to himself about his deep, true deep fears and desires. He's willing to admit when he's afraid. Um, and he says, I don't want to die. I don't really know why though, but he's not willing to say that he's afraid of death, not afraid of death, but, you know, just not wanting to die. Stuff like that. And of course, the water going into it, that's why that represents the subconscious. Um, the men all physically resemble, or it's under the surface, right? The water. The men all physically resemble, an emotion, ocean. You could do all the word plays like we did earlier with life. Life is a laugh, right? Life, love, light. All all light is love, is light, is life, right? Blah 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 blah. All that, like those things happen. I don't know how. Oftentimes they probably happen coincidentally, but I feel like the world, like I said, is kind of like an art, more of an artistic, more of like a dreamy type of thing than people understand, or most people understand. And there's all these signs and little kind of hints that the world's trying to align itself, or the universe is, and you're part of that. And there's these little things, that connect, trying to help you understand how you're part of everything, just like the zodiac, right? You're part of the seasons, right? You're part of the universe, like, um, and those signs are to show you, or to align you, uh, with you, the universe. And remember, in the Bible, the stars are to be for signs and seasons. Um, and then, have you mastered the whatever it's called? Some people say it's not meaning, he's not saying the zodiac, but it's the have you mastered the word that starts the Maseroth or something. Um, so this knowledge is not old, but sorry, I keep going on. Fletcher doesn't know why he doesn't talk more intelligently around the lieutenant, and the lieutenant leaves Sydney with a woman, even though he says he had a bad feeling about it. These are instances of our habit of self sabotage. Thought that was beautiful. Like all of these things that are happening in the movie represent, archetypal things we continue to do. Um, and the movie's intro tells the viewer that the film takes place in the mind, so it's not a stretch to claim it focuses on the Jungian archetypes, especially because Jung is referenced by name in another one of Kubrick's films, Full Metal Jacket, even if that film released far after this film. And yeah, to close off real quick, um, Aries people can, some of their keywords are, or Aries in general, the time of the year. Um, Sometimes, since it's the beginning of the zodiac, or not sometimes, since it's the beginning of the zodiac, uh, they kind of represent that year from 0 to 10, and so they can be a little childish, a little bit, whatever, all these things a child can do. Sometimes people lump that in with being unwise, but children or they could lump it in with being selfish. But children can also be the opposite. So um, you could take it however you want. But um, Aries people or the sign itself, some of them, some of the keywords are simple, pure, impulsive, um, trying to enact their will on the world, leadership, and of course, war and masculinity. Um, but passion, bravery, my favorite Aries I always think about is Sam Hyde, and he's one of the wisest people I know, or at least a lot of the things he said stuck with me, and of course, he was probably repeating a lot of things, but that those things stuck with him, and they thought they were important enough to share, and that he did share them, didn't gatekeep some things. That was amazing. So yeah, Aries sometimes can get a bad rap, but I think, and he's a comedian. That's the fool. April Fool's Day is in Aries. Easter, the rebirth is in Aries. So yeah, Aries is beautiful. Aries covers kind of like I said, the whole everything is all in the beginning. The end is in the beginning. But yeah, sometimes I feel like some of the words and key phrases, key terms that you put on the sign and the people of the sign can be self-limiting, or they could lower a person's self-esteem or stuff like that. And I don't think that. Yeah, I always like to bring up my favorite person in each sign. Like in Taurus, there's you could talk about Hitler in Taurus, or you could talk about George Lucas, who invent or made Star Wars, and you could talk about Thomas Pynchon. And those are two of the smartest people. Meanwhile, everyone calls Taurus dumb. So it's not really what hand you get dealt, and you know, it's not really. I don't think any sign is really inherently dumb or unwise, but it's really what you do with it. And I think maybe uh, your predisposition is what your sign is, but you also have a lot of other sim symbolic zodiac planets that you could look to and say this is some of my predispositions as well. But no matter what your predispositions are, I think the point is to take your gift that you're naturally good at because of your sign of the zodiac, and then try to gain the other gifts from each other uh, sign of the zodiac. And last but not least, when we're talking about zodiac and putting down people because of whatever their zodiac sign is, I just want to talk about this small thing that yeah, I think people get airheaded about, and I think it can be super super like shocking what I'm about to say, because for a time, I kind of felt airheaded about my sign, or I felt like prideful about my sign, like it was wise, and then which I don't doubt, and I don't doubt any sign could be wise, but I know I was being prideful, and pride cometh before the fall. So, but thank goodness this idea came to me one day while I was sharing love and trying to help. Um, I was doing tarot readings one day and just talking to a person freely, and all of my greatest thoughts I feel come from when I'm being wide open, trying to help people, being an open book. And also I always learn from when I'm having these conversations as well, not just from the things that come out of my mouth, but that surprise me through the conversation because they might spark an idea, or but not only that, but from obviously what I learned. We're here to teach each other, or we're here to grow together. And anyways, this idea is, some people say, since Pisces is the last sign. They might have the wisdom of all the previous signs or the gifts of all the previous signs, and they're the most wise because, and then also they represent your latest age in life, right? 110 to 120. So I'm Pisces. I was like, yeah, we're so smart. We're the best sign. Blah blah blah. And just real quick, I think maybe probably not. This might be where you live. Dr. Narco Longo said this about the place you live, or might have said about your sign, but he's like, you should think, and I love him. He's a Sagittarius. He's so like um charismatic and cool and confident, which is totally like a fire thing, and he's very brave. And anyways, he said, whatever your sign is, or whatever, I can't remember if he said that, or whatever your sign is, or whatever your place you were born or where you live, you should think it's the best place, or you should think it's the best sign. So, yeah, and that's like a total like fire thing to say. Anyways, I thought that for a long time, and so one day I'm giving this tarot reading, and I tell the guy who's also a Pisces, I'm talking about him about what I think about what happens after death, and I say, you know what, maybe after, because this is another theory that you die, come back as the next sign once you've not conquered, but once you've like really channeled or understood the sign before it. And so now you're coming back with a new dharma based off your karma and reborn into a body that's going to be put in a place where you need to learn all of the new the sign. You have to gain the skills of the new sign you're being born into. And so you'll have a bunch of, say you weren't empathetic and you don't really have that. Okay, well, you're born into a body where your brother is handicapped, and now your soul literally needs to have, like, it's not, doesn't need to, but it's going to have, because it's so hard not to feel bad for your any like others. For some people it definitely is harder to feel bad for them, but if it's very hard not to feel bad for your brother. And so that soul is going to get that energy more. And so next time they're born, they're going to be born more empathetic, right? And they kind of say that like it starts less empathetic in the beginning, more empathetic at the end when you're talking about the zodiac 1 through 12. And that's a generalization, and I kind of pulled that out of my butt, but like I've maybe picked up on that. But anyways, you come back eventually. The Pisces is to be extremely like Pisces, they're naturally very empathetic, caring, compassionate. And so now when you're born into Pisces, you have to learn how to not just give everything away. And so you don't come out of this rebirth cycle. Oh, okay, yeah, he's Pisces who was perfectly um he was perfectly selfless and selfish and preserving and giving, right? He was perfectly balanced. All right, he doesn't need to respond back. His soul can graduate or whatever. No, this is the idea. Now you're born. This is the idea I came up with on the spot with this guy. Now you come back as an Aries so that you can help the other people like a Pisces learn how to be more selfish when it actually you need to be selfish, right? Jesus said, "Don't throw pearls to swine. Love thy enemy, love thy neighbor, love thy enemy. Turn the other cheek, but don't throw pearls to swine." Right? Well, an Aries is going to have a much easier time doing that. A Sam Hyde is going to have a much easier time doing that than a freaking Pisces. Pisces are gonna they throw a lot of pearls to swine. But and all that's saying is that you're giving your energy to someone who's not appreciating it. And now guess what? You might give everything away, or or you might give it to the wrong person and they go and abuse the power that you gave them. And or you might be giving it to someone who, like I said, isn't appreciating it, and you're wasting all of this energy that you could be giving to someone else who does appreciate it. So don't throw pearls to swine. There's a point of being a selfish, right? And there's a great thing of being selfish in Aries, and that's why Aries can, Aries that that has that maybe more selfish quality, and then becomes more selfless. Probably like Sam Hyde, who like he's not doing it for charity exactly, but like he's probably taken a lot of pay cuts in his life, I'm sure, to just not go with the Adult Swim blah 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 thing or whatever, like anyways, Trevor knows what I'm saying. Hopefully everyone else does. Trevor knows me like no one else because I talk to him more than anyone else. But I think you guys understand me. Trevor, that's basically everything I was gonna say. Sorry to hog the mic, but what would you like to speak?
No, you're good. That was awesome. Like, um, yeah, like, I mean, with there's a couple things there that are really interesting, but with just like one of the last things you were saying before I forget was like, um, yeah, Sam Hyde seems to um have completed some sort of cycle that you're describing, or is it like he's gone through all of them like you were just describing with once you're Pisces, then you become an Aries. He kind of seems like that in that he said this before, and this is just a funny recurring thing in my life. Like I am always quoting Sam Hyde to people who like do may or may not know him, or a lot of the people I'm friends with do know him, but they all know him from little different things. And so it's just funny. I'm always quoting him, and he recently said, but has said before that he used to be motivated by being the greatest. Someone he was interviewing this like degenerate gambler, and this gambler was talking about manifestation and how he was manifesting to be the world poker champion, and he was going to win $10 million, and he's currently like 30 million or 30,000 in gambling debt, and like he's just trying to get on the and he's Sam's telling him, like what is your he's kind of mocking him at first. Sam's kind of mocking the gambler, but then you can tell he genuinely asks him like, what is your identity? How do you see yourself? And the guy's like, I forget what the guy's response was, but then he asks Sam, like, what is your identity? How do you see yourself? And he says, I see myself as a world champion boxer, Formula One driver, greatest artist on the planet, basically. And the guy was like, no, seriously, like, what do you see yourself as? And he's like, I am being serious. And you can tell he's kind of joking. But then he says, like, when he was younger, he used to, those were his goals, or that was how he, like, shaped his identity when he was younger. He wanted to be, like, a world champion. He wanted to be the greatest artist. And now that he's become a successful artist or whatever, um, some people regard him as a very high artist. I I would consider him as one of my favorite artists. I don't know how, in the grand scheme of things, how high he is, but he said basically he sees himself now and tries to identify as someone whose purpose is to improve the lives. I don't think this is how he put it, but to improve the lives of those around him. And I've heard him say, not in this clip, but in the past, that he genuinely wants his art and what he creates to basically just bring people joy. I've also heard him say that in a joking manner, but also reiterated that he is serious about that. Um, so that's that with his zodiac or whatever. I think he has like um, he probably is naturally a selfish person, and that got him to where he is. And now he's realized and is sharing what he has, and has been doing that for a while now. I think like sharing his knowledge or his art. But with the movie, that's really interesting too because the lieutenant, is that the pilot? Um, he he confused me because the whole time I'm thinking he's kind of like a potential villain. Like there was like, and I think the movie kind of did that on purpose. I can't really tell, but it seemed like they were kind of trying to make him look suspicious, and like because they were all like, it seemed like they were suspicious of him. Like, why do you want us to like? Why don't you want to? I was kind of confused by the general thing because at first I didn't realize they were enemies. I also think that might have been on purpose. Like, he said, "Oh, it's a general." Like when they're looking through the binoculars, but it's not explicit that it's an. And they did have different uniforms, but it was hard telling with it not being like a known war. I kind of assumed, oh, those are like on their side. Why don't they just go over there? But then like it became obvious, like, oh, those are enemies because they were like afraid to confront them. Um, but yeah, the lieutenant seems suspicious, but I think that is I don't know if that's an Aries thing, but that's something I experience with people is like there are people who are good leaders and there are people who are um I guess leader, I'm trying to think of a different word other than leader, but people who get things done well but are not like the most friendly. I Those people can be kind of, you can become suspicious of them and you're like, what's their motive? And it kind of seemed like he didn't really have a motive other than like, well, this is our only option, or the only option I feel like he might have even said that at one point, like maybe not explicitly, but I feel like he might have said at one point, like, if you have a better idea, uh something like that, to Mac or whatever. He might have not, but anyway, he had that energy though. Even if he didn't say that, he wasn't like, this is what we're doing and we're doing it because I say so. It was like, this is kind of like our only option is to go down the river. Um, we can walk, but we'll probably get captured or something. And yeah, he didn't really have a motive. Like they were suspicious of him. Like, what, do you not care? Like you were saying, like, do you not care if we die, if we live or die? And it wasn't like I want us to die. It was like we might die, first of all. Like, and second of all, I don't know. That is just a very interesting energy or a character that, like you said, when I was watching it, I was thinking of like these are individual personality types that under pressure, any anyone might act like this. Like if you're I don't want to call it fearful person, but like I don't know, like a young person, you might react like Sydney, or if you're a macho guy, you might act like Mac under pressure. And the other guy, he was probably the captain. He's probably the most chill guy, the most like I guess you would say balanced. I mean, he didn't seem dumb. He seemed pretty wise. Like he understood. At first, he might have seemed dumb, but he actually was wise. Like he said when he, what like you said when he spoke when the lieutenant wasn't there, he was very like aware of like, yeah, he gave the lieutenant the benefit of the doubt. He wasn't like, oh, he's not trying to screw us. He does care. He's scared too. Um, and then there was Yeah, those were the four guys. And at first, yeah, I was looking at them as individual archetypes. But towards the end of the movie, I was like, I could see how all of those are all within our mind. Um, the lieutenant seems more like kind of like your own drive, like your own. I don't know how you would describe it, but like the maybe your soul or like whatever's controlling the body or the mind. It's kind of like the observer. I've heard it called like he's observing everything, but he doesn't really care. He doesn't know why he doesn't care. He doesn't know why um he said something about collecting stamps or something like um I didn't really catch what that was all about, but I think he was just saying like he doesn't really have anything to go back to in the States or whatever. So um or maybe he did, I don't know. But yeah, Sydney's more like the youthful, kind of naive, fearful part of us all. Like he wanted that girl to love him or whatever, or to like he let her free and he was expecting her to like make out with him or something, and she obviously ran because she was captured and scared. And then he loses his mind. Like that reminds me of just being a young person. Um, I don't know what part of the mind that would be, but what I'm getting at is with that part, the mind. Um, Mac was the most interesting one to me that I thought the most about by the end of it was like that I don't really like relate to the whole like I wouldn't even call him like a macho character, but that was a super interesting arc, like what he did in the end, and I feel that at first it was confusing, like, oh, he's willing to die, but like for what? Like he just wants to kill this guy? Like that's kind of twisted. But like as he's going down the river and approaching the general, it like made more sense to me. I don't exactly remember what he was saying, but it's like there is something relatable or to be said for at least about like, well, I'm either gonna go home and work for the rest of my life, or I'm going to, you know, go out with a bang or whatever. And it wasn't even like, I don't know, it was very interesting. It wasn't like honorable necessarily, but it wasn't just evil like I thought. I thought he just wanted to kill that guy. But it wasn't like it wasn't even like he wanted to die for his country either. It wasn't like something like that. It was just like, well, this is what I'm gonna do. And I don't exactly know what to make of the whole movie. I only watched it once. I enjoyed it. I would give it like a 8 out of 10 because it was like inspiring. That's one last thing I'll say about all that is that from a film perspective, I thought it was super inspiring. Like being Stanley Kubrick's first film, you could just tell like, and after I looked it up, like I think like 12. There's a picture of the cast and crew, and it's like I want to say like 12 people. Like 12 people made it, and it was very deep. I thought it was pretty well shot and like good actors. It was like a 50s film, so yeah, I thought it was super cool and inspiring. And but in terms of symbolism, I would probably need to like sit on it a little bit longer. But yeah,
Yeah, there's what I was just typing when you ended. There's so much like with like you said, the postcards or the stamps that, and he said they're canceled or something. Like you could spend a lot of time with this movie figuring out exactly what happened, what exactly what they're talking about, decoding all of it. I loved the Sydney's character when he goes crazy, like that story about the fish and the general. He was the general, now he's the fish. That could literally be the zodiac stuff we're talking about. Like the general is Aries, the fish is Pisces. Um, losing your mind.
That's crazy.
Oh, oh yes, and these existential, these trippy, way of looking at the world are can make you go crazy. But yeah, there's that you know Mac wanted to control. Lieutenant was completely detached, didn't care about what happened really. But that desire to control others, that's of course that archetype of the oppressor and the attention seeker. And he, yeah, he said he didn't amount to anything after 34 years. I like that you brought up that with he's just going to go back and work. So why does it matter anyways? Like they said that specifically, like they're going to tell him what to do. He's going to be working, he's going to repair things. Um, maybe they didn't say they're going to tell him what to do, but basically he's going to be doing some menial unskilled labor. And then this is his chance to have something to be prideful about, like, oh, I took out a general, and he says it's a fair trade. I, t- even if I die, right? Not even if I die. He's talking about like he's gonna die when this happens, but that guy's gonna die too, and that's a fair trade because he's on the level of the general to be able to take out the general, and the general controls a lot of people, and so I'm on that level, and that's all of that. Um, and going back to, yeah, all of these guys, to me, all of them look like Stanley. Like, I first noticed this when I saw Sydney, who is probably the age of Stanley when he made this, but Sydney, Stanley. Um, and yeah, like, that's his immature version of Stanley, you know? And no one's, um, no one is free of having those childish, immature, excuse me, lustful thoughts, even if we can quiet them later on and they don't really um, come up as much later in life, but no one is completely free of them. They come up in everyone's mind. Uh, everyone has the ability to have that detached uh, feeling that the lieutenant has and to not worry, but that's really hard to obtain, that complete awareness, or more just aware state instead of saying this is good, this is bad, this blah blah blah, all that. Um, even though, personally, I do believe there's a right and a wrong. It's just very hard sometimes to judge between them. But that's what wisdom is, and it's what we need more of. But yeah, we all have wise moments. I guess that could his that impartiality, that detached, the looking at it from the top down view, seeing that this is what's fair, and he does a lot of that. He's like, who am I to, if this man wants to die, who am I to stop him? Basically, I have that thought often, talking, well, I'm a type of person who kind of, everyone says it's dystopia, but like whenever they're talking about, like the kill yourself thing, like in Switzerland or Canada or wherever it's being brought about, but just like in Soylent Green, or Futurama, the suicide, or those things, those machines. Yeah, and then there's the Willow Tree Society. What I can't remember what it is, but there's this poison tree leaf that can kill you, and that was a there was a group of philosophers or something who did that. I can't remember. Anyways, yeah, no, the yeah, people really do get, caught up in like choosing what people should be doing and not, but it's like, well, I should just try to be in control of myself. And yeah, anyways, you can you can you can't control others. You could only control your reaction to others, and I'll leave it at that. Very wise words that I've heard, obviously, from someone else. Trevor. Oh,
I was just gonna say he says something even crazier. That was another line that I thought was really interesting. Was he didn't just say like, "Who am I to stop him if he wants to die?" I think it was like, "Who am I to stop someone to die for something?" When I forget how he put it, but he was basically saying like he wants to die for something, and I don't even know what I'm doing it for. He said something about purpose, like he wants to. I don't think he said he wants to die for a purpose, but it was like he he was just acknowledging like it wasn't just that he wanted to die. It was that like he knows what he wants to die for, and I don't know what I want to die for, which I thought was really crazy because he is like the leader and he is like kind of like the wise one, but yet, I mean, that's part of being wise is like, yes, not judging, but also being aware. Um, it's like if someone collects, like I've always thought people who collect something obsessively are awesome. Like I've always thought that's like the coolest thing. Like I remember there was a early YouTube video of a young lady who like lived with their parents who was obsessed with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and she had like everything ever that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ever put out. And I feel like a lot of people might think that that's like stupid or pointless or like stamp collecting like it's seemingly pointless, but to me that's way cooler than like that's admirable because they at least know what their life is about. Their life is about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's like most people, like even a wise person like Lieutenant Corby or whatever his name is, he although he's wise and I feel like I can relate to this, not that I'm calling myself wise, but like um yeah, like I don't necessarily know what my purpose is, but I'm aware that everyone has a purpose and I respect those people that even if their purpose is something that's not good, like killing the general, which who's to say that maybe that's another part of the movie. It's like who's to say like we don't know what those bad guys or what those enemies were. They could be or they were ourselves, but um yeah, that's pretty much what I was getting at.
I love that you brought that up. You wrapped that up really well. Thank you for bringing that up. Um, Real quick, I think our purpose is shared. It's to be better. Everything wants to be better. We've talked about this in other episodes. Those two that I mentioned before, the Honey Don't review, the K-pop Demon Hunter, those were really good for our philosophy, but discussions. But and aligning towards that greater good for all, I think is the purpose of everything. And we have many times where we're fulfilling that purpose, and those are our purposes. Even if you do bad, right? It might lead to a greater good because we learn from, you know, that evil to not repeat it, or how to stop it in the future, or how to recover better, quicker next time. All of those great things. But yeah, no, and when we have a meaning, when we feel like we have a meaning, it's makes your life much easier to live. You want to live because you feel like there's a reason to live. You have a meaning to your life. You have a purpose. And yeah, I like that he was also, just like you just said, they don't they don't really know what that purpose is. You guys don't know what the purpose is, or don't feel the meaning. But to admit that you don't is a wise thing to do because a lot of people don't know what they want or don't know why they're living. But either A, they never think about that, or B, they lie and say that they do have one, and it's not really, their heart isn't in it. And yeah, that could waste their time, or they could go into some, they could waste their time thinking that they're having like a pipe dream, or they could have, um, they're going into something blind. And when you go into something blind, sometimes it's too late when you open your eyes. And yeah, yeah, knowing what you want, having a meaning in the world is important, very important. And yeah, that's all I want to say. But I'm definitely love to hear your response. But I think we could wrap it up here, Trevor. Keep it short and brief. And I think that it's already been an amazing episode. And I'm so happy we're back and glad that we waited till this time to come back and didn't force anything. Because yeah, there were some movies, but I don't think Trevor and I were really too blown away. Um, Not in like a mean way, but like no, probably I was kind of blown away by the 28 Days Later movie, but I don't know if there was anything new that I had to say. And Trevor might not have seen that movie. I don't think he did, but if I would have talked it up more, I'm sure he probably would have wanted to. But anyways, glad that we're back now. Trevor, anything you want to say about that last thing I was talking about, meaning stuff like that?
Not exactly. That was a good way to wrap it up. Just pretty much, yeah. Um, Glad to be back doing the show, and it's gonna be good. 2026. I don't know if this is the first one of the year or not.
It's the first Super Spectrum. Lost count of them. It's the 15th or the 16th, probably. But last one was in November with Wicked for Good. But our last video came out on New Year's Day. You and I, you and I's video, our video. It was that Grow in the Dark podcast episode 4, I want to say. And we're gonna return to that. We have a video, Love and Attention, coming out shortly, hopefully. But we're not forcing that either. But at the same time, I think we have enough material to talk about for that. Anyways, our next video for certain will be the Super Spectrum uh, sequel to this, which will of course be the next Stanley Kubrick movie called The Killing. And go watch that crypto crypto cubrology with the Divulgence episode 66 podcast, where Stanley Kubrick deep dive with Alex Fulton, who is Crypto K. Watch that video. Beautiful. Let's wrap it up on that because I think both of them said The Killing's their favorite movie. I've never seen it. I'd never seen Fear and Desire before this. I'm a big Kubrick fan. They think Killing's their favorite movie of his. I think that's what they say. But anyways, go watch that video. It's so deep and crazy. They talk about how the movie the just for a little bit of how deep they go. Twister, Steven Spielberg's movie Twister, is about Stanley Kubrick. All right, that's what the main Alex Fulton guy who's being interviewed, who's his main idea or his main thing is Stanley Kubrick. He's talking about how the villain in that movie is Stanley, or is named Stanley, who has cubes, that he tracks the twisters with, and they're trying to find out if there is any sort of uh scientific order to the twister so that they can, I don't know, predict it or something. I haven't seen the movie in a long time, but they're doing the same thing on the other side, I think, with the Dorothy and the balls, the spheres. But basically, Alex Fulton's idea is that Stanley Kubrick has all of these synchronicities within the dates of the film coming out, with the dates of the birth of the actors and their zodiac signs and their names and um numerology, the day, yeah, like the and it's like impossible, almost it's seemingly impossible to say like he planned all of this, but did he? Or, a lot of it's probably the universe trying to, like I said, align itself, help you understand how connected everything is. And so it does the synchronicities for you, and it doesn't have to be contrived by Stanley. But anyways, go watch that video, guys. Amazing. I butchered the title of the podcast episode just now, but if you go straight to the beginning of the podcast, this episode, I mean, go straight to the beginning of this video, you will see what I'm talking about with the title of that video. And oh Nelly, oh Nelly, I love that guy. Alex Fulton, Crypto Crubology. He's on Think Tank, my favorite podcast. The inspiration, one of the biggest inspirations for this show. Go watch it, guys. I love you all. I love you, Trevor. Thank you, brother. I wouldn't be here without you, and you make it so much better. Peace.
Likewise.
Thank you, brother. Have a great night, everyone. Can't wait to see you guys for the killing. Good night. Bye bye.